Our thesis that presents the topic is: throughout both John F. Kennedy's inaugural address and Antony's speech, they both utilized the rhetorical devices, repetition and rhetorical question, to advance their purpose and persuade their audience. The first rhetorical device present in both JFK's inaugural address and Antony's speech is repetition. Repetition is the repeated use of grammatical structures, words, or sounds. The use of repetition in both JFK's inaugural address and Antony's speech not only promotes clarity but encourages the acceptance of the idea the speaker is trying to convey to the audience. Here is an example of repetition in John F. Kennedy's inaugural address.
Let both sides explore what problems unite us, instead of belaboring those problems which divide us. Let both sides, for the first time, formulate serious and precise proposals for the inspection and control of arms, and bring the absolute power to destroy other nations under the absolute control of all nations. Let both sides seek to invoke the wonders of science instead of its terrors.
In JFK's inaugural address, a handful of his paragraphs started with, "Let both sides." This showed his purpose to unify the country. At the time, politics were difficult throughout the course of an election, and he was just trying to bring the nation together.
The rhetorical device, repetition, is also shown in Mark Antony's speech.
Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know.
In Mark Antony's speech, he is referring back to Brutus's speech and is repeatedly mocking him by ironically saying that Brutus is honorable, which degrades Brutus's credibility. By doubting the integrity of Brutus repeatedly, Antony strengthens his own argument.
With the use of repetition, both John F. Kennedy and Mark Antony was able to convey their ideas to the audience clearly, making their speeches extremely successful. The second rhetorical device present in JFK's inaugural address and Antony's speech is rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is a figure of speech in the form of a question that is asked to make a point rather than to elicit an answer. The rhetorical device, rhetorical question, is utilized in both JFK's inaugural address and Mark Antony's speech, engaging the audience and evoking an emotional response. A rhetorical question is oftentimes asked to help the audience realize the main purpose of the speaker without directly telling them. It is also used to emphasize an important point. This is an example of rhetorical question in John F. Kennedy's inaugural address.
Can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance, north and south, east and west, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind? Will you join in that historic effort?
By John F. Kennedy asking these rhetorical questions in his speech, he's making everyone think by evoking their emotions and allowing his audience to take their own positions on the questions that he's asking. Great speeches often do this to their listeners. But rhetorical questions aren't supposed to be answered because it's not really a question in the first place. It's a figure of speech that John is using which makes this an influential speech because he's just further proving his point. It's a question that isn't for the answer, but for the effect.
The rhetorical device, rhetorical questions, is also shown in Mark Antony's speech.
He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this and Caesar seem ambitious? You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? But here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him?
The use of rhetorical questions in Antony's speech allows the people of Rome to think about Caesar's ambitions. The rhetorical intent is to lead the audience to believe that Caesar, in fact, was not ambitious, but instead weak, as he wept with the people. The powerful message Antony conveys to the people of Rome using the rhetorical questions convinces and evokes a strong emotional response. With the use of this device, Antony's speech packed a punch, advancing his purpose.